Welcome to the podcast, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you here. I would love for you to start with sharing a little bit about who you are, where you are in the world. What do you do with your life?
Well, things have changed since taking your release and embody course. My name's Lisa Wilson, and I currently live in Texas. And what do I do? What do I do for a living? Honestly, I'm a creator. I have an online knitting business where I sell infinity scarves. I am currently writing in the publishing parts of a book. And yeah, just creating all sorts of things and working on myself still.
Amazing. And of course, you've got lots of fascinating stories that we're going to touch on because we first met quite a few years ago. So, can you share with us how is it that you got introduced into my world of emotions?
Well, a friend of mine, Jacob, had come to visit, and I think he took your first release course class. And he was actually here at my house while he was doing it. And he said, I'm working on something. And I'm like, what are you working on? I didn't think you had a job. I don't know. And then he did it, and it was a few months later, he called me. He actually called me in the middle of the night or late and asked me to join the next release course that started in 2 weeks. And I was like, sure, okay. I mean, I don't know. It was just a sure, let me do this and pay for it. And okay. And I forgot about it. And the next day, I woke up with COVID and spent
Oh.
the entire next 2 weeks trying to stay alive. My husband and I both had it. And so when I started your release course, it's like everybody, what are you working on? What's your history? And I have a huge history. But at that time, I was just like, I don't know. I'm thankful I'm alive. It was literally the first day I finally felt a semblance of better. And then it's like, oh, got the email. The call's today. Okay, it starts.
Oh, that is so interesting. My gosh, I jump on these calls and we just have a little bit of a riff at the start, but it's through the conversations like, oh, that's right. Every time Lisa says yes to something big like this, something hits her. And I say, the work starts before it even starts. It's just in that yes and in that commitment to yourself. And I've actually just finished recording the podcast interview with Jacob. I love that he's introduced you and a few other friends into this release work and just to watch your transformation. So I would love to know, it's quite a few years ago now, what sort of things did you work on an emotional level? What sort of things did you process? Are you willing to share?
Yeah, I have pretty much every trauma a woman could go through. Um, have have I lived it? It's been a part of me, not just people I was around, but I went through it myself. So when I started with your release course, I was just thinking, oh gosh, I have so many things to release on. And and as I went through them, and it I mean, it all kind of came out into a book. It's fiction too, but it was inspired by some of the things that I've been through. And man, I was just so grateful to be alive when I started your course. And then as I went through it, I was like, man, I'm really grateful that I'm alive because I've been through the ringer. Sexual abuse as a child, your family not believing you, rapes, miscarriages, multiple marriages, abortion, and a failed suicide attempt. And so it all, don't gotta cry. But it all cycled right back around to, what is my purpose? What am I here for? And then as I worked with your process through all of those things, I was currently in a transition of where I'd quit my job and I had moved in with my almost husband at that point. We're now married, but it was like, who am I? What am I doing? And then I had those thoughts during the day, and then I'm like, no, I'm going to release on my past. So it was a compilation. Is that even a word? It is now. of all the things in my head, like bees just swarming around. It's like, you're past this, you're past this. And then, nope, I can just sit down, do the work. And I mean, I feel I haven't quite mastered it by any means. But it was so, I had so much coming up for me that I needed to release on, that
Yeah.
it was just repetitive, like writing a word over and over again until you get the spelling correct. I mean, I just kept going, and I was in tears, and I was in the toilet, and I was, all the things. Um, but I worked through it.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Like you've just touched on so many elements there. And I love, again, the transparency of, well, what is a bit about your history and what did you apply the process to? Because did you feel like you had already done a lot of work around these experiences, or were they ones that you didn't quite know how to work through them?
A lot of times I've seen therapists, I've seen, I was shoved into counseling when I was 8, and, nobody knew how to honestly, my entire life I've been fueled by anger and rage mixed in with a little determination that I have to do this myself. I have to do it
Mm.
all myself. There's nobody there for me. And I thought I had, until I got down to the deep roots of it. I'm like, meh, we don't have kids. I don't want kids. I really never have, but and then you go back and go, well, do I feel guilty for saying I didn't want kids? And then all of a sudden I had a miscarriage. It's like, it's just, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but it's mind fuckery.
Yeah.
And I realized as I went through your process that I had utilized so many coping mechanisms. And as I wrote the book, and the character kind of goes through the things I went through, I realized that, you know, um, uh, drinking, even sitting in a quiet room reading a book, that was a coping mechanism. I was just hiding and stuffing all of that deep down and not really like getting it out my throat and speaking it out loud.
Oh, I love that. Can you list out any of the other coping mechanisms? Because this is where I find a lot of people think they're doing the right thing in quotation marks, or they're doing things out of self-care. But I say often it's actually still out of a fix-it mentality. If I should do this, I should do that. So if you can highlight some of your experiences of coping mechanisms, if you can remember, I love that.
Um, Probably overconsumption of alcohol would be
Mhm.
it. I was never into drugs or anything. And the reading of books and getting lost in the stories. Sometimes I tend to do that today. And it's like, okay, Lisa, what are you not facing?
Mm.
Um, and then it's a simple little, I kind of have to get to the root of it, but then it's like, oh, that was all. Okay, next.
Yeah,
But my biggest one was work. I
burying
worked.
yourself in work.
hmm And I
Okay.
mean, I constantly had a job. I moved around a lot, but I never there were a few months in there where I didn't, but I always worked. I didn't care.
What sort of work did you do?
I worked in the veterinary world of reproduction.
Yeah, okay.
Um, yeah. And I was just busy. I worked in all aspects of it, from breeding to reproduction to taking care of babies to all the things.
Mm.
But and then that kind of it leads to one of the traumas that I had in self-inflicting harm. I think that's a big thing for some people because you just you either want to be numb, like with the alcohol that numbs you, or you are so numb you need to cut. I was not a cutter, but I can completely understand that, because in that moment I just needed to feel something. I needed to to not. not feel, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, and I sometimes wonder if things like, peeling skin off fingers or scratching scabs is
which
like another form of that. And I often say
Mhm.
it's like you want to feel something, or like there's a satisfaction in scratching an itch, but then causing more damage. Thank you for going into that. I mean, um, there's so many things that we see in this group in Release where people so vulnerably share, but from a very empowered place, some of the experiences they've been through. And I think a lot of people are trying to find a space of, look, I'm not a victim. This has happened, but I want to know how to move through it. And so what I say is like, we're just working at the emotional level. Okay. Behind all of this is unprocessed emotions. So you talked about, gosh, so many things. Sexual abuse as a child, experiencing rape, a miscarriage, a suicide attempt. You talked about self-harm. Are there any of all of these that you can shed a little bit more light from this empowered place? Because I see you as a very empowered and creative woman now. What did you learn? What came out of actually diving into processing your emotions through these events and experiences? What did you learn about yourself?
I, so many things. I learned that, and it was in combination of being in a safe place. I have to give accolades to my husband for providing me with a safe place, to be able to do all of this work. I mean, it was up and down all over the place. But I learned that if I had to pinpoint one thing, it would be that it's okay to have that anger. It's okay to still have that rage because, I mean, it's life. Things still come up and tick you off, or, you can't get your hair tie out of your hair. It's like, and then it just becomes this whole ball of tangles. And
Mm,
it's like, no, it's okay. And to sit with it. And um, I did not really think about ever doing it, but when I did your work and something, just a light bulb came on, and I thought, I can actually sit with these emotions. They don't have to be good or bad or positive or negative or triggering or, any of those things. Like, why put a label on them? They are what they are. So I see them as, picture them as like little, as not little, but ghost human beings. And I'm like, all right, you're here. Let's sit down. Let's have a chat. And I did a lot of releasing on myself, younger versions of myself, not always my inner child, or, the child that felt
yes.
abandoned. And
Yeah.
yeah, and my mom died when I was 8 too. So let's also throw that in there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Um,
And you've been able to work through these experiences and still touch on the deeper layers of them now.
yeah, and it's not just a story, it's my life. And I'm a pretty transparent person because I love to hear people's stories and how, you know, maybe not exactly how they got through them, but how, you sometimes you catch pinpoints of here and there, and you're like, oh man, I've been working so hard that I'm just shoving all of that and like, I'll deal with that this weekend, kind of like the laundry. And you never get to it. And you just throw them in the trash and you buy more. It's like,
Yeah.
no,
Oh my
it
gosh,
just,
that pile of laundry that's just so overwhelming and it comes back like multiple times a week. But you just got to sort it out, right? Just, I always put
yep.
my husband's stuff, Violet's stuff, and my stuff in a pile. Then they deal with it
Right.
and I deal with mine.
Well, and that's also part of it. I mean, that's a great analogy, I guess, or whatever, but then you have other people's laundry to do too. And all of something gets mixed in. And so and I will say one of the other things I learned about myself through working with you was how I am around other people and their energy. I actually had a man one time, he came to the house and I said, "Oh, I can't be around her energy today. No." And he said, "What does that even mean?" And I said, "Well, when you walk into a room and somebody's smiling, you gravitate towards them. You walk into a room and somebody's not, you don't want to be around them." And it's
Mm.
just to be more aware of, ooh, this is coming up. Okay. And then
Mm,
allowing myself, giving myself permission that I never was given as a child to sit back and go, okay, we're going to take a break. Let's take a
yeah.
minute.
Yes. So you wouldn't say that because it was Jacob that recommended you come into release. Were you aware that this stuff was affecting you? Like, were you having repeating patterns show up, or were you being held back in certain areas of life where you thought, oh, yeah, this emotional work sounds good? Or was it just a full trust in your friend?
Honestly, it was a full trust in him to do it. And then, of course, I got sick immediately after, and I was like, oh, okay. And now, in retrospect, I can look back and go, holy cow, I was really, my body was preparing for a lot of things. Because,
Mm,
I mean, that was in 2022 or one or something. I mean, it's been years
yeah.
and, 4 or 5 years since I started that, and I'm still doing it.
Yes. Yeah. And there's just been incredible things open up in your life. And again, I'm so glad that you've touched on this is the history that I've come from. This is what I have worked through and still revisit at some points to get another message. And I say, you shared that you had a failed suicide attempt. And it's like, I'm so happy that you're here because look at everything that you can share. Um, Now that you're still on this earthly plane. So you also reminded me recently that actually you gave up alcohol the first round of release that you sat in. And you only had that realization
Smoking.
like oh, smoking, sorry, smoking.
Yes, smoking. And
Yeah.
I started, so that would have been, I'm not even gonna say, many decades worth
Wow.
of, I started smoking when I was 14.
And how many like packs a day or cigarettes a day would you smoke?
It would depend. Sometimes I would binge it. Sometimes it would be like just a few. It just
Yeah.
depended on whatever was going on. Um, but yeah, I quit. I just I didn't even actually realize it, I think, until a month or so ago. I thought, oh,
Yeah.
that actually correlates.
Yes, many years later. And when it comes to drugs, alcohol, anything like that, any addictions, just process your emotions. That's why it's so simple. Like, honestly, if you don't know where to start, just start processing your emotions and things that are not meant for you are just going to fall away from your life. The things that are coping mechanisms, you're going to realize and you're going to be able to take this deeper approach as well. Um, Okay, so there's sort of like four facets of life. There is more facets to life, but I say there's four big facets that seem to change. People's health, their family, their relationship dynamics, their career pathways, and their money. And so I remember after the first round of release, you went from someone being in tax debt to actually getting tax refunds. Like I think you had procrastinated on your tax for a couple of years and then somehow you found the motivation. Do you want to talk a bit about that? What happened there?
Sure. It was, honestly, if I compare it to like shoving your emotions in your laundry away, then it piles up, and all of a sudden, I went quite a few years without taking care of that responsibility. And before we got married, I was like, I've got to do something about this because I didn't want to bring anything in that was that I felt was my control. I should have my responsibility. And yeah, I found a guy and he filed all of it for me. He didn't judge me for it because I was super embarrassed. And that was also one of the things was like at some point I'm thinking, I don't really want to show anybody that I haven't been doing this, you know?
Oh, so funny. Yeah.
Um, but I did, and I would get a refund, and then it was like, okay, well, this year you owed, and then I'd get a refund, this year you owed. And so finally at one point it spiraled down and was like, okay, this is what you owe. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to do this because I'm not working? I mean, that was kind of the thing that we talked about. I had been consulting some in the industry that I was previously in, and then COVID hit, and things fell apart for a wonderful reason because there's a whole story about it on my website. But I started a knitting business, and I mean, it was I just felt so open and could pay attention to all the synchronicities and the black butterflies and the yarn falling off the thing and all of the infinity scarves that I had already been knitting. And so I already had inventory. And then, yeah, it took off. And with the help of family and friends and a little bit of marketing, I was able to pay my tax debt off. And then now I have a business. And now so we're making it work. It's really so nice to get those checks in
Yeah.
every year.
I
Yeah.
so love that. And oh my gosh, I should have worn my Infinity scarf today for the podcast episode because I do have the heater on. Tell us a little bit about, yeah, this creativity because I say, and it sounds like, without going into too much detail, like a lot of the releases, I say, a lot of people have got to work on sacral chakra issues like relationships in life, people that you've just been in relationship with, not necessarily intimate, but family and so on. And your sacral area is the center for creativity and intuition and emotions and um, knitting can be seen as something as creative. You created a business. So I love basically you created space to tap into maybe something that you didn't feel you could do because you were working so hard or you didn't have the time or things had to look a certain way. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the knitting business and because they're beautiful, very intentional scarves. And I just knew that I was going to buy one at the right time. And I think it took me a few years, but you never pushed it on me.
Nope, I don't because they will find their homes at the right times. So I think it's kind of all of the things that you listed intertwined. I mean, how are people going to look at me? Oh, you have a knitting business? You know, when I was hands-on, hardworking, just getting out and dirty and working outside all the time. Um, and how would they judge me? Was I worthy enough to be able to run a business? But I didn't even know what it was to even have a business. And I had created so much because as time went by, I was writing this story and I was getting my little girls at that point, it was getting her stuff out and then just working through that and creating space, honestly. Like you don't know until you do the work. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can talk about your work all day long. I can talk about your work all day long, but nobody knows what it's like unless they actually do the work. They can show up, but you can show up to anything like my dressage lessons. You can show up and get on a horse, but if you don't actually do the work, you're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
And so I was determined because at that point, like I said, I didn't have a job, so I was determined. Started the Black Butterfly and just said the heck with it. I didn't care what anybody thought. This is my journey. I don't owe anyone an explanation.
Yeah.
And it really gave me a sense of purpose too. And I did struggle honestly for a couple of years with even being able to word out what I do, because that's what defines people these days. So what do you do? When you first meet somebody, it's like, what do you do? Well, I knit,
Yeah.
but I've since fixed that. I have an online knitting business where I sell intentional knitting, intentional infinity scarves that are hand knit with luxury yarns.
Yeah.
But the whole what sets it apart is the creativity. I kind of get to be a child again. No, kind of. I do. I get to create whatever I want. Sometimes I follow a pattern, sometimes most of the times I don't. I just create as I go. And I have a notebook that I keep track of like kind of the things that go on. What TV shows do I watch? What person's calling? What's the theme of this scarf? And it stems from a friend of mine whose husband passed away, and I made her a prayer shawl. And that's where a lot of the churches do them. You knit prayers into a shawl, and then they can wear it and feel comfort,
Mm.
love, all the things you knit into it. But I kind of did it backwards, like I do everything else. I'm like, no, I'm going to make this, I'm going to create this, and then I want it to tell me what's in it. And
Mm.
then I create a card. So if somebody purchases them, it's on the back of the card. And I write it out in the moment. It's handwritten. I write it out in the moment and I put it in a little deal. And if that scarf goes to somebody that next week or the next day or 3 years later, it's so funny. And I don't tell people what the card says until they buy the scarf.
I
So,
know. That's what it was such a surprise. And I love it. This makes me think of how I say, having the right tradies because their energy is going to go into the building or whatever they are fixing. It's like that's why I was just so drawn to your work. And I love that you've actually just been able to showcase it here because I'm all about the energy and the intention that goes behind the thing. And so to know that money is just the energetic byproduct of it, but this allows you to be a child again. This was born out of you opening and creating space. That makes me want it more. So I have bought just a small handful of artworks of creatives who have been in release. And actually, I think you were in the round with Shelley. She's the artist and she created the hummingbirds. And I found her on Instagram and then she created a really colorful piece during release. I was like, I'm buying that original. So that sits in my house. I've got your infinity scarf. It's so special. And yeah, when I received it, I knew nothing about it until I got it. And so I love that you keep it a secret.
It
It's,
it makes, and I've been to trade shows and stuff, and people are like, "Oh, I love this. I want to buy it." I'm like, "But there's extra. You get
yeah.
extra with it."
Yeah, and it's kind of like there's the people that want all the details, and then there's the people that love the surprises. And yeah, it's so hard sometimes to keep back that extra because you know that it's going to be an experience from the time that they say yes. There's such beautiful scarves, and I'll make sure that I link it into the show notes that when someone feels like they're an energetic match for it, like everyone's unique. I love how you even go and hand dye stuff. It's just so special.
It's a lot of fun. Like I said, I get to do so much creativity. I mean, I come in and I talk to my yarn and I'm like, who do you want to be today? Oh, you want to be with you? And, my husband's in the other room. He's like, I can't understand you. I'm like, oh, I'm not talking to you. It's fine. It's okay.
Because you're also in the world of fairies and gremlins, like we have some fun around that. And it's about,
Yeah.
being supported by all realms. Okay, and so what else was created in the last handful of years? So Black Butterfly Knits, and then what else did you start creating?
Oh, I have worked on a book, of course. And then I just have created so much space for things to come in. The other day, or probably a few months ago, I was like, okay, energy needs to move. Like I have dates with my bank account every month. And then I'm like, okay, this needs to move. This needs to move. Like we need my crystals, I'm like, okay, y'all have done your job here. I'm gifting, even the plants on my porch. I'm like, we need to move. And so I started going to a local trade show and making small little plant gifts for people. And then decided I wanted to take dressage lessons. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that because I'm, but I knew I needed money to move. I'd
Mm.
been sitting on, what I had, and I thought something needs to move. Like my scarf sales are down, this and that, and I could say it's summer, but it's actually winter in New Zealand. So like something needs to move. So I invested in those dressage lessons, and I'll be damned, like a week later, I sold a really large piece that I hand crocheted. I've got more than just infinity scarves. I've got some larger statement pieces. And that was the same price that I had invested in my first part of dressage. I'm like, oh, so cool.
Oh yeah. I
So,
I
you
love
know,
these crazy money stories and it's choosing joy and creativity, all this stuff that's around the sacral and that's this transition point of what do you actually desire? What have you not made time for in the past? And if you immerse yourself in those experiences, like watch what comes to you, if you're really clear about your intentions and your vision.
yeah, and I mean, there were a couple of things that happened along the way. Of course, it's been years, but it's like, oh, I got this check in the mail. Oh, I got this check in the mail, and or I got a refund that I didn't know about, or just the things that people say, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. It's not going to fall out of the sky. Well, sometimes,
It does.
if you intend, I mean, I intentionally went into dressage as I want to learn something new, move my body, and be back in the realm of horses.
Mm.
And it just that was my intention. And it's the same with any like my business, with the scarves or the book or even just life. Like your intention has to, it doesn't have to be, but if your intention is pure and from your heart, then magic happens.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely, 100%. We always say magic happens in this space, right? Of like releasing and processing your emotions. Um, okay, so are you able to share anything more about your book creativity and how that was born?
I mean, to be quite honest, I was born from my life experiences and then working with you because I've always been a writer, not, I didn't go to college for writing or anything, but I've always kept a diary, even as a little girl. And then I kept journals, and my mom kept journals that actually I have letters that she wrote to me and my brother. But I've just always, that's how I got things out because if I didn't write, I raged. And it
Mm.
was a very angry child. I mean, biting, kicking, screaming, getting into fights at school, all of the things. And writing is where I could get my emotions out. And so through doing, instead of coping, I released through my writing. And then I have a friend that would listen to me read the story out loud to her as I went chapter by chapter. So I
Mm.
wasn't just writing it, I was voicing it out loud at the end of each chapter. But then as I was writing the chapter, I'm like, crap, I gotta stop and I need to release. Okay. And then and sometimes it would take a week before I got back to writing. Sometimes it would be, the next day, or it might even be a couple of months. Bless her heart that she waited, she's like, where's the next chapter? And I'm like, I need to work through this first.
Mm.
But that's, the intention behind that too is, and I wrote it down. I keep going back to it. So many people want to change and alter when you say you're doing something. They're like, oh, well, so and so did this and they were so successful. Or I think you should do this and this and this. And it's like, while I'm open to suggestions, let me do my own thing, please.
Yeah, and be so grounded in actually just doing your own thing.
Yeah, and it's purely from the intention that people who have been through the things that I've been through can understand that there is hope, there is a way through it.
Mm.
And then even people that haven't necessarily been through all of the things that I listed at the beginning of this podcast, maybe their friends or family or daughter or mother or son have gone through it, for them to find some compassion and understand, the complexity of emotional turmoil that goes on when you go through any bits of this. When you have an abortion, it's something that stays with me every single day. I can say I've released through it, and I
Mm.
have,
Mm.
but it's still there. It doesn't, like when you release through something, it doesn't just go away. You don't erase the
No.
memory,
Yeah.
but it becomes something that you can talk about with people. And my intention is to be able to share the story in a way that it helps somebody
Yeah.
else.
I love that. And I'm so happy that you've done that. And I think, in release, we actually see our stories are all unique and our experiences are unique, but we see how many other people go through similar experiences and have a different emotional lens, different stored emotions around it. So, yeah, I actually like this pretty much everyone who joins release and shares. I'm like, can you come on the podcast? And people are like, oh my gosh, can't talk about this. So again, I just want to really honor and acknowledge you for coming on, being willing to be transparent. about your journey and where you are at now. Like just hearing you speak and the life that you've created is such an inspiration and a testament to what can happen when you're willing to dive deep into yourself. Um, Now, the other part that I want to talk about, oh my gosh, so many things, is just the transition, because there's multiple transitions that you've been through, working to not working so hard. You talked about multiple marriages as well. Are you able to talk a little bit about what you recognize in the history of your marriages and relationships, how you navigated it, how you've found a wonderful new husband? And yeah, the work dynamics there that you've had to surrender to.
Absolutely. So it was honestly through my writing and stuff and reading it out loud. I'm like, oh, and even the lady I was reading it out loud to, she goes, "Ugh, there's such a pattern here. Doesn't she ever get it?" You
Yeah.
know? And so, and I could see it. It's the cycles of the fight or flight thing that people always talk about. As a child, I fought and I fought and I fought. And then when I was older, graduated high school and became an adult at the grand age of 18, I realized that flight was my thing. I would leave. I would start over in a new job, in a new town. Nobody knew me. I could just be whoever I wanted to be. That's the
Mm.
Gemini and Aquarius in me. I'm like, ooh, who do I get to be today? Or in this town, how do I want them to see me? Or in this job, how do I want them to see me? And so even with my marriages, I was just like I've always had control over and I'm gonna leave you before you can leave me type of
Mm.
attitude. Like
Mm.
I've
What do you
got my shit
do you have any
together.
idea where that comes from? Wanting to leave before they leave you?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, I think well, I can tell you it's abandonment things from my past. My mother dying of cancer, and I took care of her, and I had so much anger towards her and towards God for leaving me alone with all these people that didn't believe me when I told them what had been going on. And if that was another realm of abandonment too. It wasn't the thing, it wasn't the sexual abuse as a child. It wasn't that. It was that nobody believed me. Like, and
Yeah,
then I think, well, nobody believed me, so then I'm just not going to talk. I'm not going to share anything with anybody.
I love that you touched on this. If I can just speak to it, is often because we do have people to come into release and they release on these experiences. They've done a lot of therapy. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed that we often speak about is, gosh, you've done so much work around the event, the perpetrator, the experience, but what about the people around you? Even like maybe sometimes if it goes to the level of police or the hospital, but then family. Um, and yeah, how did they support you? How did they protect you? And that's actually for a lot of people where a lot of the emotion is still sitting that's never been addressed.
See, you just touched on that, the abandonment, and the we just did
Yeah.
a little bit of work there.
Yeah, yeah,
I caught on pretty quick though.
yeah. There are realizations that land as we share the story in this format, right? And we realize more people are going to be listening too. So, marriage, the marriages, the patterns that you recognized.
Yeah, it was just a cycle of always wanting to be in, needing to be in control because everybody, I felt at that time that I couldn't depend on anybody but myself. And it was just
Mm.
me in this realm and just go, 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 work, 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 and that's what I did was I constantly chose work over my personal life. And
Yeah.
it didn't pan out well, thankfully, twice. And then, I was at work, and that's how I met my current husband, and we transitioned into, me living with him and the not working, and it was very difficult to not feel like I had a purpose.
Yeah, so can you talk a
Um,
little bit about the not working? Like, what was the arrangement that you had and exp like, yeah, the internal experience you had of it? Because some people would go, "Oh, I'd so love that," but then we know that often there is this transition. There's a whole thought process.
Right. And, it was, we talked about it. And like I said, I did work for a while and then COVID kind of crashed down. And I, some, I kind of felt like he was like, where's your determination? Where's that woman that I met that I fell in love with? Like, you were go, go, go. And I finally was like, I've never been able to put my personal life first.
Mm,
And that's what I said. I said, when I get out there and we get situated and things, I'm going to be able to answer phone calls. I'm going to be able to visit friends. I'm going to be that safe place for my friends. I want to be there for those who have been there for me, mostly strangers and friends that I've made along the way. And he, you know, was okay with it. But that also, he puts his profession is main, and that's what provides.
mm,
And there was a transition in there in my brain that I'm like, yeah, but then what am I good for? Why am I here? What am I
yeah.
doing? We don't have kids. What do you do with your life, Lisa? And honestly, I heard it one day where I had started writing and working through things. Like that was one of the things about doing the release course was I needed something to do.
Mm,
I was OCD cleaning my house 5 times a day. I had all the laundry done. I was like, what do you want for dinner? I was little Miss Housewife, But he was tired at the end of the day. And he didn't have, no, I won't say he didn't have time for me, but he was tired. And I was like, but what about me? What about me? And I just felt lost. And so, um, while I was through the release course and everything, I woke up one day and I heard a voice. I'm not audio voyant or whatever it's called. I don't think it's clairvoyant. I don't know what it is,
clear
but
audience.
clear audience. Okay. I am not that. But I heard a voice loud and clear say, Lisa, what are you doing with your life? And I sat up in bed and I'm like, what is going on? I'm looking all around, like, and thinking, I don't know. And then I got up and I came in it was not an office, it was just a guest bedroom back then. And I looked at my computer plugged in and I thought, "Ah, I need to write. Okay.
Mm,
This is what I'm doing with my life today. I'm going to work with Jen. I needed some type of structure. And it was really hard. I judged myself just like other people judged me. Oh, that must be nice. Oh, and there's so much turmoil and I guess that's really the only word I can say because it was just difficult. I mean, there were tears, and he would come in at the end of the day, and I was unhappy, and I was just pissy, and he's like, "What? What is going on? You get to stay at home and take care of the dogs, or you get to do whatever you want." And I'm like, "No, I can't because I have to clean and cook and he's like, I just want you to be happy. I don't even care. Order a pizza. This doesn't matter. Just want you to be happy. And it took me fighting and fighting against it for uh, probably 2 years before I
wow.
finally was like, oh, cool. All right, what are we going to create today?
Yeah.
And then I got into that. And so then he got into my business and he's like, buying me fancy yarns and all of the things and going to dressage shows with me. So it's
Amazing. So you've just opened up the receiving channels massively, but then you've
yeah,
recognized where you've got to work on actually receiving. Like, again, people think, oh, okay, if only I don't have to work, if only I can do this, can do that. I'm like, okay, well, let's get you into that space and then let's navigate the next level of emotions that come up. Because what I hear, or the structure that I'm going to put behind it, is it was an identity shift. Like your identity was in how hard you worked and how good you were because you were very good with your work with the animals and in the breeding industry. And so now all of a sudden when there's that abrupt change because of COVID, but also this permission, like you don't have to go to back to work. I just want you to be happy. It's like, well, what is happy? What is my purpose?
Yeah.
Thought it was like helping animals in the breeding industry. But yeah, what am I here for? And actually, as I'm speaking this through and interacting with you and then hearing all of the things that you have moved through, there was a question like back then, maybe with the failed suicide attempt of like, what the hell am I here for?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, and that you're correct. The identity thing factors in so much more than people think until you're in a situation you don't know. And I always say, don't judge anybody's story. That's their story. We can experience the same thing and remember it completely differently.
yep.
But he, like, through that, he's just provided me with so much space. And I'm not an extravagant spender and all of the things. Um, and our communication has opened up. I mean, we talk about all the things and stuff now. And back then we could have, if I would have opened up the communication, but I just like it was this fear of losing control and being vulnerable and depending on him and knowing that I need him and I want him. It's not like the previous relationships I've been in where I'm like, I just want you. I don't really need you.
Yeah, so there's like that
Yeah.
underlying of energy of I don't actually need you. And
Hmm.
people want to be wanted, and things that the universe provides wants to be wanted as well.
Yeah, and there's such a different dynamic in when you say, I want you or I need you. You want
Yeah.
something, do you need something? I mean, there's such a different complexity to it. And
Yes.
I it's even the other day I was driving down the road. I mean, and I will say this wasn't something that happened. There were a few things that would happen like overnight because I get an idea and I run with it. Like it needs to happen yesterday, and I will do all of the things and get it done. My pent up determination. Uh, but then a lot of the stuff is just over time. Some things just take time because, especially in, a relationship dynamic, because you're not the only one in it. You have to think of the other person, and they might need a little bit more time. Maybe they're not doing the work and it's a slow roll. But I was driving down the road the other day and I mean, it's been years since I've had this like a panic attack. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is that? What is that? And it was happiness and comfort. And I was going excited to get home and share my story about my day. And I just realized that for for 40 years, I lived a life full of rage and anger, despair, shutting down, being quiet, being silenced, you don't just being was never unsafe, but emotionally in an unsafe place. And this was just it still just feels so odd sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, is this my reality?
Yeah.
It's
As
crazy. Yeah, I know. Like, oh, we'll see it on the video. Like, as your like Zoom AI just goes like zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. So trippy how it responds sometimes. That's amazing. So he provided safety for you to explore this work, but also gave you the patience and the time to find yourself. And now there's more layers to continue to find yourself, but I don't think it's going to take you that long.
yeah. And let me tell you, his patience with me, because he's the strong silent type and I'm just flittering around like talking to my yarn, and I talk to the meat in the stove, on the stove, and I'm talking to my wine glass, or I'm talking to the dogs. Like I talk to everything. It's
Yeah.
just around and buzzing, and he'll go, just calm down. What are you trying to ask me? Like, oh, I forgot.
But it's so funny, isn't it? Because what I am hooking onto is like, where are you? Like the fun, the playful version of you that I met. And we know through your um, constitution that we discovered through release as well, like what is you in true balance? What is you out of balance? So like you're very Vata Pitta. So the Pitta is the really work hard, bury yourself in work. But then, you can get things done fast. You want things done yesterday. And that also came up in how you emotionally release. Like, why is it that you got so sick when you said yes to yourself on a deeper level, and then you've had it again recently, something where your body's responded. But then your Vata is like the fairies, the gremlins, the talking to the things, the very highly creative side. So it's like, through this constitutional work, we know what you've got to come back to, your true nature, but it's just been so removed from so many years that that doesn't feel safe. But how do we provide safety? Well, we can provide it for ourselves, but also we can attract others that provide it for us, like the space of release or your husband being able to provide that for you. And yeah, space. Space is the feminine, trust is the feminine, creativity is the feminine. And it's not
And
easy.
it's not easy, and I didn't realize how much I was living in the masculine for so many years, and just the go and do and go and do and just not even focus on my thoughts. And I think that was one of the things that came crashing down on me during um, that time, when I had the incident, that's what I call it,
Hmm.
um, was I was overworked. I'd taken on a really big job, and I had so much responsibilities. I now had multiple employees, and I had a big thing going on. And, I thought I was having a heart attack on the side of the road, and went to the doctor and was like, hey, man, like, what's going on? And then, after being, your anxiety levels so high, they give you a super antidepressant. And my emotional cup was not ready to be that low. It's doing
Yeah.
it again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so trippy, isn't it?
Um, but I just wasn't ready to go that low. And when I did, I was like, oh. So, I think I drank on it one day because I couldn't remember if I'd taken it messed with my memory a lot. But it was literally like anything I take, I guess that's part of the Vata. Anything I take gets into my
Mm.
system very quickly.
Yes, yeah, I
Um,
was just going to talk about that, like the Vata constitution. If you've got this dominance, it can be more prone to anxiety and worry. So like that's the first signal that things are going out of balance. And then yeah, being very sensitive to medication as well.
and that's, I mean, it was prescribed on Tuesday, and Saturday I was in the bathtub slitting my wrist.
Mm,
It
hmm
was that quick.
mm.
And worked through it, was able to keep my job and all of the things. And
Did someone
um,
find you or did you call for help?
Mhm. Yeah, that's kind of a weird story, the
Okay.
angels. But no, I had white towels and white rugs in my guest bathroom, and my phone was plugged in across from the bathtub. But somehow there were pictures of me in the bathtub on the phone, and I had texted somebody to come save me, but there was no blood on any of the white rugs.
Mm, I've got
But there was
chill.
blood in the bathtub in the pictures.
Wow.
So, like, I mean, you can believe in whatever you want to believe in, but I truly believe there was another power there to reach out. And yeah, somebody did come and find me. And the through that is I carried a lot of guilt for putting them in that situation. I mean, at that time I was like, I'm not even thinking about myself. Like, I just feel horrible that they had to come in and find me. And then, everybody, and then what's everybody gonna think? And, are they gonna feel guilty? And then, I was distanced from a few people I know because they were like, you're so selfish. I can't believe you would do that. Aren't you thinking
Mm,
about anybody else? And I'm like, no, I was thinking about myself, but like, I didn't feel like I mean, y- and unless and I pray nobody ever, gets in that situation, but unless you've been through that, you just nothing would have changed my mind unless somebody was knocking on the door. And I
Yeah.
had texted previously that day a couple of people that uh and they never responded or called back or any of that. And so I'm like, I need to call you, it's not your fault. There was nothing anybody could have done. That was just a complete awful moment of, one of the cyclical decisions that I made throughout my life. It's like, I'm just gonna leave.
Yeah, yes, so interesting, but just on a different level, showing up in a different shape, way, or form. And I think it sometimes represents, without going too deep into it, because everyone's got a unique experience, it just represents like when you reach out to help, like maybe how full other people's cups are. So you get to work through all of that through the emotional processing. But what's interesting that really stood out as you talked about that is like, I was just worried about myself. But then, like, the guilt and shame around the fact that you're worrying about yourself, which is actually exactly what we need to do, is just make yourself a priority and you'll be able to help so many other people. So it's a bit messed up, the thinking and like the
Yeah.
projections. And yeah, people intellectually know, but their their body and their energy communicate something different.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I've just had
Sure.
chills the whole time listening to it,
Yeah.
because I do believe that oh gosh, this might sound a bit strong, but there is a timing for people's lives, and some people are still meant to be here, and some, I believe, leave, and they are here to teach us lessons. But the human mind just closes off, wants to blame, wants to find an excuse. It's like we all have this timeline on this earthly plane.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had multiple conversations about that and with people. I'm like, it's just the time.
Mm,
And, it wasn't my time. I still had this whole other life that I get to live.
yeah.
And, I think it was maybe 2 months after that, whenever I first met my husband, and then, he courted me for a couple of years. So then we finally got together, and then off we go. But it's almost like, a completely different life. I mean, almost I've got major chapters, and I've got a book almost for every chapter that I've written. But I'm very grateful to be here. I do know that there's a little bit of animosity from people, and nobody, sometimes my story is just too much for people to hear, and they might hear it but they don't hear it,
Yeah.
and that's okay. That's okay,
Yep.
because if I can help one person by sharing this, it's like, that's okay. Just, to be aware. Again, be aware of the things that you put into your body. And I've been on depression medication multiple times throughout my life.
Mm,
Um, it never, I mean, for me, it was a season. Some people need it consistently, and I understand. For me, it was a season to get me to figure out and work through things. But um, gosh, it's been a long time since I've been on any medication for my brain, I guess.
yeah. Well, I see
Um,
that you're living your life and you're being able to make yourself a priority, free of that guilt, free of that shame. You're able to tap into your creativity, and you've attracted wonderful people into your life to support you to do that.
yep, yep.
What other stories do you want to share with us?
I don't know. I guess one thing comes to mind because I know I randomly send you voice notes here and there when we're not working together, and it's
Mm,
just so fun that you are available for those. And I love the voice notes
absolutely.
because you can listen to them whenever you have time.
Yeah.
But I know I did a show in, I think, November. Maybe it was no, it was at Christmas time. I did a show, and I had to walk like 7 blocks in the dark to get back to my car. And it was a 2-day show, so I just didn't haul anything. I just was done, closed up my little tent, and walked. And I was so scared. And I don't know why. I live in a little small town. So, but in my fear, I anger came up, and I'm like, why am I here by myself? somebody should have been here with me. And I was just so angry. And I was so scared. I was crying. I stopped to get a drink at the gas station, and the man, he said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then I thought, driving down the road, I was thinking, what would Jen do? Because I don't drive at night. I don't drive in the rain. It was raining. It was night. It was cold. It was like, I was so scared walking, just the 7 blocks. But I thought, what would Jen do? Okay, I'm angry because nobody was there for me. But in all reality, I was afraid of being by myself. Well, why are you afraid of being by yourself? So I went down this entire rabbit hole, and I'm like, oh, Lisa, just go to sleep. Like, you're tired. It's just been a long day. You pushed yourself. And I peopled a lot, and my face hurt from smiling, and I had just taken on Lord knows how many energies from people walking through the place, and I was just so open and willing to share my stories with other people. And so it was the whole thing. But I always, maybe not always, but the majority of the time, if I'm thinking, okay, fear, this, or any type of emotion that's confusing me or whatever, like, okay, let's sit down and do the step-by-step process. Like, where does this? And honestly, like, if I do a release on myself, just from 10 minutes ago, like that time I got home, and I sat in the car and I did it, and I was like,
Yeah,
did a release on myself. And then it just leads to, like, it opens up, I mean, maybe it sounds
messages.
redundant, but it opens up space
Yeah.
to really, then you release on this and then this and that person, or whatever. And
Yeah.
you go, okay, I feel so much better now. I can sleep.
I know, it's so amazing. Yeah, it creates space and then it creates space for the messages. And then there comes a point where you can walk through life and you can interact and you can see the messages in the moment. Like it's like you're in this conversation, but you can see and hear everything on a much deeper level, beyond the words, beyond the body language, and you having like this whole other conversation happen in your head at the same time. It does make us sound a little bit crazy, but I love that. And sometimes consciously, we do put things to the side, especially like a show. It's a big thing. There's interaction, but then we need that downtime. We need a little bit of processing as well. And it can just be such a quick and easy thing to be able to move through. Okay, what else do I want to ask you? My gosh. Well, it's been 5 years since you sat your first release and then came back in, and I love the messages as well. It's really interesting because you know that I feel like I hold boundaries, but I think some people get a little bit triggered by those boundaries. I love hearing like the milestones that are happening in your life, and if there's challenges, then I'll say, hey, I think maybe it's time to like drop back into this world and shift things again and see and open yourself up to these opportunities that just land on your lap. Um, but yeah, it's just interesting. I love how you find this ease to just get in touch with me and that you're okay if I say to you, hey, I think you need to do some deeper work on this. Anyway, where
Mhm.
was I going with this? 5 years since you've sat your first release, going from tax debt to getting tax refunds, sorting out your money relationship, surrendering to this beautiful marriage that you're in, navigating this differently, creating a business, writing a book. And then you came back into release again. So why
Mhm.
why did you do that?
Oh, why did I do that? Because I'm on the journey of self-publishing. Well, at that point, I was on the journey of publishing and not knowing what I needed, but I knew I needed support. And I didn't need suggestions from everybody. I just needed
Yeah, not
support as I'm
strategy.
at. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just needed support to go through it. And I thought, I mean, that was my intention. And then things escalate, or things kind of went this way with the book. And then I was like, oh, I just need support with my dressage lessons, man.
Yes.
But
That's right.
it all works out. And so now it's like, how am I going to navigate this publishing? And then finally it's like, just self-publish. Okay. And then all of a sudden I made one decision. And like you said before, if you don't make the decision will be made for you. And I kept hearing you say that in my brain, and I'm like, make the decision, just go forward. If it doesn't work, then all we have to do is step back and we go a different direction. Um, and so being on this round of release was really nice. It did show me how much how I'd grown from sitting the first release and embody and your vision course. And I think another heartfelt listening course I sat through and maybe committed. I mean, I chimed in on some of the smaller offers that you had, and every single time something, just rang in. And so that's why I hopped on this release. And of course, right towards the end of it, that's when I created my LLC and am going to be able to uh, publish. So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
exciting because what is it? You said, I promised myself that I wasn't going to make any big decisions, but there was just all this magic that happened in that interaction. It's like you cannot ignore this. And you said it earlier, everything starts with a desire followed by a decision. And it's honestly in that decision that opportunities start flowing. My next steps are commitment, work, and then getting the support. And yeah, as you said, it's like I don't need strategic support because you're very intuitive about how you want to put your work out to the world. It's more the energetic and emotional support because it's another, I know for me, like it's another identity shift of this piece of work is going to stay written in the pages and, people aren't going to necessarily meet the next evolution of me. And, is this going to get misunderstood? And that's where I think in this world of work, we talk a lot about, being an energetic match for someone and that you can't be everything to everyone. Your book's not going to be everything to everyone either, but it's going to find the right people for sure. But then share
Yeah.
it. What is the way that you're going to share it? Actually get all these amazing written words that you started a handful of years ago out to the world, to women and men who need to hear these stories, like the truth of what actually happens in this world.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, and that you're absolutely right. When I made the decision, I could have gone online um, to any, there's everything's online that you can find nowadays, but I wanted to speak to somebody in person. And so found the lady on Saturday, called Monday, and they were like, "Well, can you come in tomorrow?" And I said, "You don't need to do it over the phone." And, she said, "Well, we could do it over the phone." And I was like, "No, I want it in person. I want to see the person that is going to be, on my team, so to say." And man, I met with her, and you're right. I said, "I'm not going to make a decision today." And I, she was so, bless her, she listened to me talk to myself kind of. And I was like, "But I don't know because, this feels so good. This feels so right." And I said, "You know what? Can you do this and this and this?" And she said, "Yes." "Okay, how much?" And she told me, and I said, "Just go and do it before I talk myself the other direction." And
Yeah.
she did. And then she came back in and we talked for another 40 minutes. I mean, I was in there 15 minutes and I made a decision. And then we
Yeah.
we talked the rest of the hour, and she ended up purchasing a scarf for me, and we
Oh,
cried and we laughed and we just had, the best time. And I thought, this is great. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes things happen like that and sometimes they don't. They take a few years, but when you open yourself up and you're aware of how people respond to you and what's going on, then it's easier to move forward with the happiness and magic and fairies and things.
absolutely. And I just love it. You sold a scarf while you're talking about the book at the same time. It's like, well, people only know what they can buy of us and receive the energy of it if we're willing to actually share it. And there's multiple different ways to be able to share something, right? Also, positive releases. I
Oh,
just
yes, I meant
want
to
to talk about that.
mention those.
Yeah, because I say we don't just have to release on negative things. A lot of people will come in because that's the stuff that they want to work on, but there's also value. And also, for some people, positive releases is a good entryway into releasing to find the safety in it. And I just remember you going, "Oh God, why am I feeling this way?" Like it was dictated out. It's like I had no idea I would feel this way. So yeah, they've always been on the platform, but I say sometimes you just don't see stuff because it's not for you. It wasn't for you 5 years ago. So do you want to share a little bit about your experience with positive releases? I can't even
Yeah,
remember
I
when it was
was,
on.
I'm like, how the fuck have I been doing all this work and I'm not even celebrating? Like, what? Okay, thinking, well, life's really good right now. I've got this, you're celebrating this, celebrating that, and then and then you're like, you can do a positive release. And for
Mm.
me, in my brain, release means getting something out, which is
Yep.
usually unwanted, something held internally unwanted. So I'm releasing, the magic from my fingers. I'm releasing all of the things and or vomiting or diarrhea, whatever. You're releasing
So
all of
funny. I
this
have to say, because like yours and Jacob's are back to back, and both of you have got strong pitter. And so I'm like, guys, don't worry, you're not going to vomit and have diarrhea when you like come into this. It's only certain constitutions, and it's only if they maybe like just really go for it, which is part of their journey. So I'm like, oh gosh, don't worry, guys, not everyone's gonna have this response.
and it's not like bless their heart. There are some people that really need to do that. But
Yeah.
um anyhow,
Well,
it's
anyone that's gone on like ayahuasca, I'm like, guys, you are just like purging there. Like, do it in a more conscious way. Yeah.
well, so in my brain, I'm thinking release means just all the negative stuff or all of the crap that I've been suppressing and all of the list of the history, all of that. And I'm like, I can do a positive release.
Mm,
Oh my gosh, so I'm like, I am so happy and I want you to know how beautiful you are. And I did this amazing, well, I did a regular release on a horse that I was riding. One of my lesson horses that I was having issues with him nipping.
mm.
And then he responded completely differently the next day when I had my lesson. And I thought, oh, shit, yes, it still works, right?
Yeah.
And then, so I
And
did a
animals are so
positive
sensitive
release.
to our energy as well.
And then I did a positive release on him. And after I was like, you did so good today, all of the things. And then my next lesson before I went in, as it takes me a while to drive there, I did a positive release on him and myself from, you know, the previous 2 days from being, I thought, man, Lisa, I'm so proud of you. Like you really got on. You didn't jack around tacking him up. You just got on with the work, and that's what all he wanted to do, anyways.
Yeah.
And it's been beautiful ever since. Like,
Yeah,
there's
I
no
I
more
love
nipping.
that. And I love that my journey of horses could help you, and like how could we apply it to emotional work and watch how they respond as well. Yeah, that was just quite a significant change, wasn't it? Going from being a little bit scared around him to like actually understand this horse and his constitution and what he wants to do.
Yeah. And, then I mean, I don't know why. I guess it's the humanity, the human inside of us. We really need to tap into our fairies more often because you just focus on the negatives. It's like, this happened, and then you get into victim mode, and then woe is me, and nobody wants to be around that. I mean,
Yeah.
you start to turn in the person that nobody wants to be around. You don't even want to be around yourself. And it's like you forgot the good things that happened,
Yeah, yeah, it's
and
it's so interesting. It really is actually a level of work to be able to celebrate and then also have people in groups, spaces and places where you can celebrate without the shame, without the guilt, without someone else's projection. It's like, hey, this is what is possible.
Mhm. And that's currently, I've surrounded myself with friends and people. I mean, not like literally, because most of my friends and family live very far away. But it's like, hey, can I share a celebration with you? Can I
Mm,
guess what happened today? And then in turn, they get to share that with me. I mean, I've got a friend of mine, and we have money celebrations. I don't even remember when that had like switched on
yeah.
our in our friendship or clicked on. And she's making, more six figures and doing excellent. And she can call me and I'm not like, oh, well, that must be nice.
Yes, yeah. Oh gosh, it's so
Or
special to have friends like that. And I think that's why,
yeah.
you message me because, I'll always celebrate. And I get the feeling like I used to make stuff and go to markets. And, I've written a book as well. So I'm like, oh my gosh, Lisa, like, yes, cheering you on. And there's always a story behind the story, but like, what is
Mhm.
the truth?
Right. And, I don't judge her for that. And she doesn't judge me for staying at home and playing with all my yarn and plants and horse riding or whatever the heck adventure I'm on next. She's like, so what did you do today?
Yeah. Well, I think it's an inspiration of like so many people think about it, but it's like don't think about it. Just do the work, feel, and go and experience it. Like as soon as you catch yourself trying to logicize, is that a word? I might have made that one up. Like apply the logistics, the practicalities to it. It's like just stop. Okay, that's where you're in your mind and you're not in your body. Okay, so a couple more questions. How would you describe the space of release in the people? Because I keep on saying to people, I work with people with chronic illness, complex health conditions. That's usually the health entry point, but it's repeating patterns or a friend. There's more friends being in release, referring my work to friends or family members. And I say, don't worry, guys, it's not this giant pity party working on emotions, because I think that's what we've been conditioned to. So, how would you describe the space of people like working through their past, sometimes traumatic experiences, and the people that are attracted into release?
Um, there's a mixture of personalities on there. I love being on all of the calls because your accents are amazing.
Oh, yeah, because there's a lot of
Just like
Australians.
yes. Yes, there are a lot of Australians and I just love to hear everybody speak. Um, but there's a lot of different personalities and it's one of those things that everybody there is there for a reason. And sometimes like you could even pick up on it before they do. Um, but we all show up, whether it's just straight for support, like, hey, I have this idea, I just need cheerleaders. And or a chronic illness. I mean, there's just such a different variety of people on there, but every person is supporting you. Like I go into the group and I know I'm here because I have this whatever going on. And yet I know even though they're dealing with their own stuff, they support me. And it might not be every single person in the group, but there are a couple that are, you're just drawn to each other.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Hey, okay." Or, they type out or, say something on the call that you've been through and you're like, I don't want to offer you help, but I can tell you there is hope and you're in the
Yeah.
right space. Like I'm just thinking of you today, or, you know, it's just such a beautiful space. I mean, we go from talking about, chronic illness to somebody dealing with their son or dealing with, a book launch or, I'm not launching
Yeah,
yet,
yeah.
but things like that. Like it's just such a variety, but the magic and the energy in it is just so positive. I mean, yeah, it's like, hey, I'm going to tell my story, or hey, I need help with this right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
an empowering place, isn't it?
yes, it really is. Yeah.
Amazing. Is there anything else you want to share?
Um,
Any other breakthroughs that you've experienced?
am I forgetting one? Is this a hint?
No, no, not at all. It's just
Okay.
like it's an opportunity if there's anything else you really want to speak to. Uh,
I'm I'm trying to think, but I think that's probably about it. Like I know I've come such a long way. I feel, oh, I know what I was going to say was the vision thing with the it starts with the C, the
core
like
values.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yes. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to say this is the part that comes after release. Like, because I've worked with some
Oh,
people
okay.
for so long,
Okay.
but talk about it, because that's the thing, as I say, release really has everything for you to meet you at many points of your journey on the emotional level. It's just like you came in 5 years ago, and then there's a whole nother layer that you didn't see just recently, right? And it can stand alone. But ultimately, for me, I want you to be able to create space, not just to get the messages from your experiences and create space for creativity in your life. I want you to create space to step into your vision and exactly how you want to manifest your life. So that's the piece that comes after embody that I wish everyone would take that step. But some people need to stay in release for a period of time before they're ready for that too. So yeah, talk
Okay.
about the core values.
It was just something quick because it came to me, was, well, one of the things that working with you, you have access to that stuff and, printed it out in a binder and I, I still have access to it, I
Yeah.
mean, it didn't go anywhere
Yeah.
afterwards. So,
Yes.
I could still use it.
Yes.
But to look at my core values, that I
And
had.
revisit them as well, because core values do not stay the same, especially if you go through all these big changes.
Yeah, because they had changed. I think I sat through that in 20, I don't even remember what year. But it was in January, the year you broke your ankle.
Oh yeah,
It was
2022.
okay, it was a little 3-day thing in January, like,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
um, we did that, and I thought, "Oh, okay," and I wrote them out, and was like, okay, and I did all the things, but then I revisited it, of course, 3 years later. Like, why am I not looking at this at least once a year? And
Mm,
they're so different. I mean, I wrote down, excitement, creativity, I can't, expression, just so many different things versus integrity, worthiness. I
yeah.
won't say that they're not valuable, but to me at this point, the mundane emotions. It's like,
Yep.
yes, I want loyalty. Yes, I want, everybody
Yeah.
wants all of that in their
It's
life,
funny, just
right?
the energy in which you're like kind of communicating it, right? And yeah, 3 years. Sometimes we just need the accountability to remind ourselves, okay, is this the human, the energetic side? Is it the physical, the emotional, the dosha, or the chakra that we need to work on? Like sometimes when we're just in it at that next stage of transition, we forget what tool do we use at the right time. And actually, sorry,
Mm.
values. Values is a core part of the next piece of vision, but it does sit in release under the base chakra lesson, because if anyone's got any issues with their base chakra and they're doing release, usually people that do release do not have sense of survival in terms of not having a roof over their head, food, water, shelter, clothing, warmth, um, or like they don't have issues with money necessarily. Like, gosh, money is just such a subjective topic, I think. But the people that come into release, they're not struggling at that level. But where the base chakra comes into play here is values. Like, are you actually able to make decisions based on your values? Do you remind yourself that after you've lived that life, because it's a reflection to go, wow, these are the values that I wanted to live by, and I did for a period of time, and I've opened
Yeah.
myself up to the next level of values that
Yeah,
might seem
because
really
now,
mundane.
right. And at that time, they were huge for me.
Yeah.
And I lived by them for 3 years. I was like, nope. Any decision I made, does this meet at least two of my core values?
Yeah.
If not, then it was a no.
Yes.
And I lived by that. And then now, I keep all my notes. So I looked back and I'm like, yeah, because I did that. And then now I've leveled, not, well, yeah, I've leveled
Yeah.
up.
Live it
And
up. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, now we're going to introduce excitement and fun and creativity and expression. And we're just really going to be in the flow, and no opportunities will come as they come.
Yep. Absolutely. I love that. And I think it gets a little bit more elusive the longer we do this work and less tangible to people. So it can feel big talking at that level, but that's why I'm getting people on to go, where did you start? And I'm trying to get more people on at the beginning of their journey. But what's funny is then people go, oh, hang on, but now I want to have the manifestation story. So maybe we wait a little bit longer. And I'm like, oh, yes, and let's just do another podcast when that happens, right? So a lot of people I'm getting on 5 or 6 years later, and we're condensing a story down to sometimes like 90 minutes, and it's like this has happened over 6 years. It's a
Years.
wild journey. There is just 5 or 6 years. There is so much behind the scenes, and yes, the end result's cool, but journeying with these people is a completely it's an honor, it's a privilege, it's a completely different journey. So, what would you say to someone who is considering release?
Oh, I would say absolutely. I have recommended it to a few people, but I'm like, you have to do the work. It's not, I've seen some people, how do I say this? I've seen some people, their frustration with it. Um, and it's like, but are you doing the work? Like,
Mm.
you're just talking yourself into circles and like nothing's going to change unless you do the work. I mean, a friend of mine was seeing a therapist the other day. She called me and she goes, Lisa, I've been seeing a therapist. I said, good for you. She goes, it's so much work. And I said, yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
nobody's going to do it for you. You've provided all of the tools. And I would just say go in with an open heart and like the word expectation is so sneaky. It tends to sometimes get in there, but you just truly, if you're in the call or on in the group, you are correct. You've got a roof over your head. You've got all of the things. Just make sure you carve out time for that. And
Yeah.
it's not a lot of time. It's mostly the contemplation time of thinking about what happened on the call or what happened. I mean, you're just constantly in this space, even when we weren't face to face or, back and forth on the Facebook group. You're constantly there. And for me, the time change is significant from where you are. So, you're almost always there when I need you because,
It
because
all
of the
works
time
out
change.
perfectly. It's funny because
No,
sometimes I think, some people do wait a little bit longer, but we do have a head coach who's based somewhere else in the world. So there's like we're sort of evenly spread, but I trust the people that are there to wait a little bit longer for a response, which never is really that long. Like that
no.
is meant to be. That's what I've had to learn to trust.
Yeah, and it's perfect. I've honestly like through all of this, well, it will happen at the right time. She'll listen to it at the right time. Like because when you force something, and that's the other thing about it is, there's your work is so beautiful because there's a flow to it. There's not a force. And
Yeah.
when you call somebody on the phone, you're kind of forcing them to answer. I'm different. If I don't have space for you, then peace out. You get mad all you want, but I don't have space for you.
Barter out
Uh,
and ignore them.
but it just there's no force there, and the work flows beautifully, even through my emotional waves and all of the things that I kind of am up and down and go in circles on. It's
Mm.
just been very consistent, uh, and something I can put in my garage of tools
Yeah,
that I
I
have.
love that. I love that so much. And yeah, who knew that you were going to sign a book publishing, self-publishing deal? No expectations, just open to the opportunities, clear enough space to be able to trust yourself in that. So, thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing, gosh, a lifetime of events in such a short period of time. I love that you have returned into this world because I know we both love magic and I truly feel like magic happens. And I'm always there to remind you, remember what happened the first round? And you're here to remind me more of the stories that I've forgotten. It's pretty powerful. And I sometimes forget the pain that people have walked with because I get to see like the brightest, shiniest version of you now. And it's super fun. And you're such an inspiration. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. I was so happy to be on this.
Awesome. I will be sharing this with people out in the world who are interested in the world of emotions. And yeah, if you're interested in release, and as Lisa says, just go on the journey. It is an experience. It's you do learn, but it's not something to stay in your head with. I'll pop the details into the show notes and we'll go from there. Thanks again.